Hello friends, my name is AJ. In this particular video, I want to start going over some review questions for the AP Computer Science exam, the 2020 exam, which is coming up very soon. What I wanted to do is I wanted to choose a few of the questions from released FRQs in the past that correlates toward what is going to be asked on this particular exam in 2020, and I wanted to be able to go over those with you. So today we're going to be going over question number 1 from the 2019 FRQ on the AP exam for 2019. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where you can find it, and then you can try it out, and then I'm going to be going over the answers and the reason why everything works. Without further ado, let's get started. All right, so I'm on the AP Computer Science page for inside of AP Central. So I'm basically showing you where you can find this particular released exam as well as all of the other released FRQs for the past. Unfortunately, they do not release multiple choice questions, but it doesn't necessarily matter because of course the 2020 exam is only FRQ, and the only things that are released are FRQs, so it doesn't actually hurt us in this case. Okay, so if you see this bottom bar here, you want to click on the exam, the exam button. If you click this, once it loads, let's see. Okay, it brings me to the AP Computer Science A, the exam page. If you scroll down past the exam format, which is still outdated, by the way, this is outdated because this was for the 2019 exam, and also if there wasn't the change due to the coronavirus, then you would have the multiple choice, but this is not up to date. If you want to see the up-to-date things, make sure to go onto the College Board's homepage, and then on the top banner, they have information about the new exams. Also, I have a video called Everything You Need to Know for the 2020 AP Computer Science exam. Definitely check that out if you're already not aware of the new format. So, once you scroll past, you see that there is this little thing here that says 2019 free response questions. You can actually see here that you have a table with 4 columns. One for the question, one for the scoring guideline, some sample responses, and the scoring distribution. And the scoring distribution pretty much just shows how many percent of people got each score. So you can see that 26.7% of test takers got a 5. That's really good. And 21% got a 4. And 20% got a 3. So over 68% of people got a 3 or higher. That is very, very good. You can see that almost 70,000 people took the exam. All right, so that is the scoring distribution. So in order to find this particular free response question, simply click on free response questions. And when you open this, you will see all of the released questions by their number. So it starts with question number 1 on this page, and the different parts, and then question number 2, question number 3, and question number 4 at the bottom right here. And you can also click on the scoring guidelines to see answers and how you would be scored based on your response, and I'll be going over this as well. Okay, and then the last part that I want to talk about is 2018 and earlier. It used to all be on one page. For some reason they moved it here. There's a button below this table that says practice FRQ questions, view free response questions from 2018 and earlier. If you click this, you will see you have the same thing for all of the tests all the way back to 1999. Now, I don't recommend doing the one from 1999 because if you click on it, you'll see that it is not just Java, it's actually C++ as well. So, definitely don't worry about this. It seems that they must have taught this class in C++ before they taught it in Java. So, once you start getting earlier than I would say 2014, which is 6 years, you're starting to get to stuff that's a little bit more older. I would definitely do 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016, maybe even 2015, 2014 if you just feel like you want the practice. And I'll be going over some of these in videos. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started with this particular question. So this is question number 1 on the 2019 exam. So I actually have the question here open as well as a coding window, so we can work on this together. So question number 1 says, the AP calendar class contains methods used to calculate information about a calendar. You will write 2 methods of the class. So you can see here you have a public class, and they show you the class so that you can see it. You have the AP calendar class, and then you see you have a bunch of methods for this class. You have a is leap year method, which returns true if year is a leap year and false otherwise. You have this method, number of leap years. You can see it says implemented to be implemented in part A, which means we'll be solving this in part A. First day of year is a method which basically says, what is the first day of the year? And then you have day of year and then day of week. Okay, so if you go down here to part A, which is what we're going to be working on, it says, and now we're going to be very specific now in how we answer this question. I'm going to be showing you the method that you should use. It says, write the static method number of leap years, which returns the number of leap years between year 1 and 2 inclusive. So remember, leap years happen every 4 years. So it's going to basically, between a given year, year 1, and another given year, how many leap years are in between the two, including the bounds, right? Because it says inclusive. So you're including year 1 and including year 2 in that. And then it says, in order to calculate this value, a helper method is provided for you. And it says here, is leap year year returns true if the year is a leap year and false otherwise. That makes it very easy for us to check if it is a leap year or not. And now it literally just says, complete the method below. And you must use the is leap year properly in order to receive full credit. So we're going to start off, and the first thing I always do is I do open and close curly braces, and I also add a comment that says, sorry, this should be method here. And the reason I add a comment is just so that, it makes the structure much clearer and what the actual the braces are for, and it just helps for generally checking your work. So the first thing I need to do is I need to create a variable to store the number of leap years, because remember, that's what I'm trying to return. I'm trying to return the number of leap years. So I need to create a counter for the number of leap years. I can say num leap years like this, and I can set this equal to 0 because my initial value for this should be 0. Now what I want to do is I want to check all of the years between year 1 and year 2. So what I'm going to do is, if I want to check every single year in a range, I can use a for loop to do that. So I can say for, right? And then remember, I have 3 parts to my for loop. I have the initial counter, then the at which point I stop counting, and then also the increment that I use. So I can say int year equals, right, year 1, because that's where I'm starting, because again, I have this inclusive, so I have to count year 1. And then I say year is less than or equal to year 2. And again, I use less than or equal to simply because this is, it's part of a range, and it's inclusive, so I have to include that upper bound. And then I do another semicolon, and now I do the increment, which is just going to be year plus plus, because I'm increasing it by 1 year every time. Then I can have open and close curly braces, and I can label this as my for loop, that is my a for loop specifically, that this curly brace is for the for loop. Then what I can do is I need to now check if my year that I'm currently looking at is a leap year, because if it is a leap year, then I want to count it inside of my counter variable here. So to check if it is a leap year, I can say if, and then I can use this method that's given to me. If is leap year, because they gave me a helper method called is leap year. I can put in a year as its parameter, and it will return true if it is a leap year and false if it's not. So I can say if is leap year, right? And then in my parameters here, I can put in year. So if is leap year, right? If this year is a leap year, if this is true, then I want to add 1 to my counter, which is num leap years. Num leap years plus plus. Just like that, I want to increase it by 1. And then I'm going to have a comment here for if, just to keep myself consistent. Okay, so now that I have created the code that I start at year 1, I go all the way to year 2, and I check every single year inclusive, and if it is a leap year, I add 1 to the number of leap years counter. Now remember, if you remember my video that talked about the tips and tricks for the FRQs, I made sure to make a point to tell you to always never forget to include your return statement. Because see, I've completed the problem now, I feel good, I've completed the problem, everything's great. But if you forget to return, then that can be a point off on your exam. Because remember, the question says, right, that your method should return the number of leap years. And up here, in my header, there is a return type of int, so I have to return an int. So where do I actually return this now? And I can now look at my 3 different layers. Should I return it in my if statement, inside of my for loop, or outside of my for loop, right? And well, let's think about it. If I try to return it inside my if statement, that means that the first time that their leap year is true, it's going to return out the value. So the value can only be 0 or 1. That is not correct. Also, the for loop, if we put it inside the for loop, right, it's going to return immediately in the first iteration. So that is not going to work either. And then the last part here, which is the method, is where I want to return it, because I want to return the number of leap years after I completed my iterative process. So here I can say return num leap years, just like that. And this is my solution for part A, number of leap years. And this is what I would write inside of this box. Now, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but I actually took the AP Computer Science exam in 2019. So I had this question on my test, as well as all the ones on here. So definitely these are actual real questions. So they're very, very helpful in terms of review by looking at past questions. Okay, so we've completed part A. Now we can move on to part B, and this one is definitely longer. It says, write the static method day of week which returns, so again, keyword, I'm returning something, right? The integer value, so I'm returning an integer, I need to keep a mental note of that, representing the day of the week for the given date, month, day, year, where 0 denotes Sunday, 1 denotes Monday, ... and 6 denotes Saturday. For example, 2019 began on a Tuesday, and January 5th is the 5th day of 2019. As a result, January 5th, 2019 fell on a Saturday because it is, 6 days after, or 5 days after Tuesday. All right. As another example, January 10th is the 10th day of 2019. As a result, January 10th, 2019 fell on a Thursday, and the method call a day of week returns 4. Okay, so this one may be confusing at first, and that's why I always recommend really read the examples they give you, because the examples they give you can definitely help you kind of understand what they're talking about. What they want you to do is for any given date on a calendar, right? They want you to be able to return what day of the week it is, right? Is it Sunday? Is it Monday? Is it Wednesday? Is it Friday? That is what the method wants to return. And out of which I know, in fact, I'm going to add this in my comment just so I know, right? The returning values, right? 0 references a Sunday, 1 represents a Monday, 2 represents a Tuesday, and so on. 5 represents a Friday, and 6 represents a Saturday. Right, so now I know, and I'm just going to make this even and delete this one. So now I know that this is what they mean in terms of the values that I return. So let's think about how we can solve this, because this one, may require a little bit of thinking. And before I do that, they actually tell you here that we have 2 helper methods that may be able to help us in trying to solve this problem. It says first, we have first day of year, which returns the integer value representing the day of the week for the first day of the year. So basically what this is saying is I can put in the given year and figure out, well, is the first day of the year a Tuesday? right? Because if the first day of the year is Tuesday, then, January 2nd is going to be a Wednesday, so it has to adjust depending on the first day of the year. The first day of the year doesn't necessarily start on a Sunday, right? And then the next method is day of year, which returns, returns n, where month, day, and year specify the end day of the year. So what this is saying is day of year is going to essentially return the actual number of the day of the year. So what I'm saying is that, for example, February 1st is not, the first day. It's actually day 32 inside of the year. And you can see they have some examples, right? March 1st is 60 days. 60 days in a year. And in 2017, it's the 60th day in the 365 days in the year. That is what day of year returns. So now, knowing the first day of the year and the number of days that have progressed since the first day of the year, we have enough information to be able to solve this problem. So the first thing we want to do, I'm just going to adjust, okay, so you can see part B at the top. The first thing that we want to do is we want to find the start day, right? The first day of the year. So I can say int starting day equals first day of year. I'm using the method to find, the starting day of the actual year. Is it a Sunday? Is it a Monday? Is it Tuesday? Etc. And the first day of year takes a parameter, which is the year. So I can simply put in year in here. And so now it is saying that the starting day is going to be equal to the first day of year, just like this. Now the next thing I need to do is I want to run to figure out what actual day of the year it is, because now I want to use this second helper method. So I can say int, again, day in year is equal to day of year, and then I have three parameters, month, day, and year, and I can simply type in month, day, and year. I'm simply passing along the parameters that I put in this function. I'm passing it along into my day of year, not day of week, yeaf function, into my actual parameters right here. Okay, so now I know the starting day, and I know the day and year. So now I need to figure out and do the algorithm, or the math. This is now using a mathematical expression. Remember, these particular questions can have anything from Unit 1 through 4. So this is more of a Unit 1 mathematics type thing, while this was more of a loop type question. So now I need to figure out what day of the week it is on the given day. So I'm going to create an integer variable to represent this. I'll say day of week, right? And now I can set this equal to something. I need to figure out an algorithm. Well, if I have my starting day, right, being a certain day of the week, I can type in starting day. And then I can add to my starting day, I can add the number of days since that starting day, right? Day in year. Now, if I were to do this, you would actually see that my starting day, right, being, for example, Sunday, and now this is where I want you to think about this. Let's say my starting day was a Sunday, and this day and year, right, is a starting day, is 1, right, because it is January 1st, so it's day number 1. If I do 0 plus 1, that results in 1. Indicating to me that the day of the week that my starting day on is a Monday. But I wrote, and I know in my function here that the first day of the year is a Sunday, not a Monday. So let's think about another example. Let's say I do the first day of the year is a Sunday again, and now my day that I'm looking for is January 2nd, right? The second day. If I do 0, right, because the starting day is a Sunday, so 0 plus 2, the second day in the year, that gets me 2. And that indicates to me that the day of the week is a Tuesday. when in reality, day number 2 is actually the Monday, because day 1 is Sunday and day 2 is Monday. So I need, if you notice, I'm always up by 1. I am 1 forward than what I actually need to be. So in my algorithm, I actually have to subtract 1 from this value. So now if I were to, and I'm going to just write a comment here so you can kind of see. Let's say my starting day for the year of, let's just do 2020. I know this is not like accurate. I'm just choosing something here. Let's say it's a Sunday. If I were to input into my function day of week, and let's say I do 1/1/2020, right? Now this is going to return Sunday, right? Because the day and year is equal to 1. This is equal to 1. So I do 0 plus 1 minus 1. That equals 0. And so then I return 0. And if you remember up here, my returning values, 0 represents Sunday. Now this works. If I were to change my date to, let's say, 4, right? Now my value is 4 for day and year. So I do 0 plus 4 minus 1, and that is 3. That represents the day of Wednesday, right? Wednesday. And now that is correct. But what if I go into the next week? What if I go into, let's say, let's do 8, right? If I were to do 1, or 0, plus 8 minus 1, that gets 7, right? And 7 doesn't represent any day. 7 is 1 more than Saturday. So in reality, it should be Sunday, but now it's this value of 7. And every time I increase my day, let's say I change this to 9, right? Now my day of week would be 0 plus 9 minus 1, which would be 8. So what's happening is I'm not rolling over, right? I want to roll over back to 0. So how can I do that, right? What operations can I use to try to get it back to 0? So let's think about this, right? What I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to find some sort of remaining, right? After I remove all the weeks out of it, whatever's remaining, or a remainder. And there is a specific operation we can do, the modulus division, in order to get the remainder. So let's just say I enclose this in parentheses, and then I do modulus 7, right? Now, let's say my day was, 1/9/2020. Right? If my day is 1/9/2020, my starting day, right, equals 0, which I've said. My day in year is now equal to 9, because it's the 9th day in the year. So my day of week is going to equal 0. Well, 0 plus 9 minus 1 modulus 7. Which is 8 modulus 7, which, when you do the math and you find the remainder, is 1. Now it's back to Monday, and now I've rolled over. If you think about it, with modulus division, I can now no longer go past 7. The reason I can no longer go past 7 is because if anything's greater than 7, it's immediately removed out through division, right? 7 modulus 7 is 0. So if I were to roll over in one day, past Saturday, it'll be back to Sunday. If I go over 2 days, it's going to be Monday. And if I go over in 2 weeks, like let's say my value here is 15, right, for day of week. If day of week is 15, 15 modulus 7 is 1, right? The remainder is 1, because 7 goes into 15 twice, which is 14. 15 minus 14 is 1, and 1 would be the remainder. So this right here, this simple math expression, we had to really think about it. But all we did was we took starting day plus the day and year minus 1, again to account for the difference, modulus 7. Just like that. And that has solved the problem. We have now found the day of week, right? Or the day of week. I'm going to write day of the week because I don't want to confuse it with my method name. There shouldn't be a confusion, but I just want to keep the names a little different. And lastly, if you remember in my problem, again, you always want to check this, it says returns integer value in my problem, and in my header, there's a return type of int, so I have to return day of the week. Just like that. And that is the final solution for this particular question of part B. This one probably, and a lot of people may have gotten confused on this question, especially because of this -1. A lot of people may have forgot to realize that -1 in there. So definitely it took a lot of thinking, but we were able to solve it. And look at that, it was only 4 lines of code too. So most of it was, again, thinking about the logic, thinking about the math, rather than actually, the complex code. It was just kind of thinking about the solution and then applying that particular logic that we created in our mind into the actual code. And that it really in the end is what they're testing you on, right, in this test. This test isn't supposed to be, something of, how many semicolons do you forget, right? We're going to count it against you. If you remember in that, in the video that I made about the tips of the FRQ, I talked about that there are actually so many things that they allow, like they do not penalize you on. So, again, this test is mainly supposed to be testing on your ability to read a problem and then solve that problem, and then solve that problem using code, right? It's not, this test is not all about using code only. It's mainly using code to solve problems. And really, they're testing you on that problem-solving ability. And then turning that problem-solving logic into actual code is the last step in that process. So if these were good for you, this one was a little bit more of a difficult question. So if you definitely, especially if you got this first try, that is very, very good. You are definitely on a very good track to at least getting 35% of your weight on the test. And definitely it's very good in case if you did make a few mistakes, you can definitely figure out some of the things that you may have missed. If you still continue to not understand anything or understand a specific part after watching this video, definitely in the comment section, ask me a question. I'll be available to answer them. If you like the video, feel free to like and subscribe for more content. And as always, thanks for watching. More review videos and FRQ walkthroughs will be done in this week.